Marvin Divine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming, it's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the program. This is Chris, live in Central Pennsylvania. Thank you for your patience. I really do appreciate that. We had some technical difficulties on that end, and I want to thank you all for being here today. My guest today is Pieter Rautenbach from the Hartbeespoort Economic Forum, if I got that correctly. Pieter, goeiedag.
Goeiedag, Chris. Your Afrikaans is mooi. Your Afrikaans is nice. Thank you. Thank you for...
Ik praat niet Afrikaans niet. Well, thank you. It's very kind of you. It's my pleasure to invite you on. Listen, I forget when it was, a year or 18 months ago now, there was a bunch of nonsense being reported in the press about Hartbeespoort, and I know the area, of course. I'm sad what's happened to the dam and the reservoir there, but I know the area, and I've been through there, and also have a few viewers that live around there. So I started covering it, and it seemed to me like a lot of sensationalism, a lot of unfounded claims, and the story kind of died down after a while. But then recently, the South African Human Rights Commission apparently went there, I guess, to investigate, ostensibly, and they issued a report. You've issued a public notice that came out in response to that report, and I want to get you on to talk about what's going on. So first off, can you tell us a little bit about what the Economic Forum is and what you guys do before you get into that?
Yes, the Hartbeespoort Economic Forum is like something like a business chamber. And we've got executive and a committee who's advisors, and then we've got the executive, of which I'm part of, and the chairperson as well. And our main aim is to make sure that the municipality is doing their job, and to make sure that everything is running smoothly in this area, and to take on all these challenges that we've got in these days. Like the story about the racism. I was basically retired, and then when bubbles burned down, and I believe that you had a program about that, and then I started to get involved again, and that is what I'm doing now. I'm giving attention to all these kind of stories on behalf of 6 forums, local forums.
So if you could recount a little bit about Bubbles. I mean, it was like a little vacation or club spot there along Hartbeespoort. Can you tell people a little bit about what happened there? Because there were allegations, and it seems, I'm not making any claims, but it would appear from the outside, and of course I'm 6,000 miles away, 9,000 kilometers, so I could have this wrong, but it appears that this story was purported that this was a racist incident, but it may have actually been an insurance fraud. I don't know that. I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you tell people a little about the story? Because I think some people aren't fully informed about what was going on in Hartbeespoort back then.
Yes, that was a prime spot that was occupied by this Mr. Machibidi without any permission. He didn't have a lease, and normally what they did, they enter what they called a PTO, a permission to occupy, with the Department of Water Affairs to make use of this land. But he didn't have a PTO, neither a lease, but he occupied the land, and he put up a building there for a restaurant, and it's prime property that he utilized. But there was a conflict between the community and him because of noise pollution. He will carry on until 2 o'clock at night with noise. And one night, I remember that the community went to the police station, 40 of them, to file claims, or not claims, to open cases against him. But then suddenly, one morning, I heard on the news that Bubbles has burned down. And then it was all over the news. It was like a tsunami that hit South Africa. All the news media were making out that Hartbeespoort is a very racist town, and it's Afrikaners from Skumasville who burned down, who arsoned the restaurant. And that's why I then decided I'm going to involve into investigating myself. I took the IOL Star newspapers to the press ombudsman, and I also phoned and sent messages to the news media like News from Africa. It's one of our TV stations here, and the press ombudsman then kicked the IOL Star out of the press council because it was the third time that they were publishing racial issues, which was not racial issues. The News from Africa decided that they apologizes to me that they published or they profiled a one-sided story, and they then decided to have a live show from Harties, and that's where we had the opportunity to try to put things straight. But in the meantime, the South African Human Rights Commission phoned me and they asked me to arrange a meeting here with a certain part of the community because they are busy with the investigating. We had a very constructive engagement with them at that stage, but then later they brought out a preliminary report a few months ago, beginning of the year, March to be exact, which was shockingly racism, one-sided, and there's a lot of people and leaders who objected against this preliminary report, and the final report was only announced last Thursday. So that is basically, but what can I don't know if you want me to continue with Bubbles, what happened there. What happened, the allegations was that it was arson. All indications at this stage, even from the police, from the head of detectives, that there was no arson from outside. What I've seen and what I've heard from people who work there, that it was an inside job. That is, I can't prove it 100%. But fact is that there was some encounters between some people there, and the wife of the owner admitted that she was at the premises when it burned down, and she was trying to connect her cell phone, and she saw a orange light, and then the fire started. But all indications is that the floor was burning first before the wooden pillars and the curtains burned. So to me, an eyewitness who was first at the premise when it was burning, told me that the whole floor was alight. So it seems to me it must be some kind of arson in another way to burn down the place, as you've mentioned, possibly for insurance fraud.
All right, so let me unpack. Let me unpack this a little bit.
But that's not confirmed.
Right, that's what I said. Let me unpack this a little bit now from what you just said. So as I recall, there were allegations that Afrikaners were racist and had torched the place because they were angry about the noise, and they must have done it. Those were unfounded allegations, never proven. There's been an investigation by fire inspectors, apparently, and they've determined that the fire wasn't started by someone outside, although I'm not sure how they would determine that. But there was a witness who was in the place and said the floor was on fire, which would contradict the statement about how the place burned down. But whatever the case is, we don't know that it was burned down for insurance fraud. We can't prove that, and we also can't prove that any racist or Afrikaners or anyone else, actually had anything to do with it. That's all supposition that has not been proven by anybody. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. My take is that they had to find a scapegoat to get national media attention on the problems that they had with water affairs and the fact that they don't get approval for leases and PTOs. And that is the only way that they could get media attention, because I had previous experiences when I was the mayor here of a similar incidents where they used us as a scapegoat. There was one guy went on a hunger strike, a white guy, and then he admitted to me later in council on tape that he had to use the council as a scapegoat to get international media attention to a housing problem that he's got on his farm.
But Pieter, it works, doesn't it?
You mean the to use other people as scapegoats? Is that what you mean?
To do that, well, to get media attention.
Well, they are getting the attention. Most certainly it works, but I mean that is unethical and that is not righteousness, and I'm that's why I'm fighting this kind of behavior.
Well, unfortunately, not unfortunately that this happened, but unfortunately, it's different today. You and I grew up in a different world where your word was your bond and morality was your guidestone. This is the 21st century, and hucksters, scamsters, and people like to misrepresent facts are all over the place, particularly in politics. And so I want to shift now to about the South African Human Rights Commission report. Now, I watched an interview with the lady who was involved in that report. And she said that it's time to use every legal mechanism available to take the land at Hartbeespoort from the landowners, the property owners. And she didn't say it was because there was a land claim against it. She's saying we need to encourage them to use every tool at their disposal, including the recently approved expropriation without compensation law, which, by the way, is unconstitutional. It violates Section 25, but that's another story. So she said we need to encourage the authorities to use that to expropriate the property, not for a land claim, Pieter, but for redress of economic disparity. So the argument is now being made. Of course, we've seen the South African authorities come to America and tell President Trump we're not expropriating land. It's not happening. That's fake news. It's not going to happen. Of course, my question was, if you're not expropriating land without compensation, then why do you need a law to approve that? You already have a law that lets you get land if you pay people. So she said on a news interview that it is time to take people's land, not because they stole it, not because it was won in conquest, not because it was, people were removed and placed in townships, but because some people don't have the same level of economic success that others do. Did I get that wrong? I mean, I heard her say that on air.
Yes, but she didn't say expropriation without compensation. She just mentioned expropriation, and they've got certain rights to do expropriation in the sense for services and that kind of stuff. They can expropriate land, but she says specifically it's for redressing. And that is wrong. It was contradicting what the president was saying, President Cyril Ramaphosa, at different occasions, and to President Trump in the White House as well. He recently said it at the G20 as well. Again, reiterated that there weren't any expropriation won't take place in South Africa. And you can see what's happening. There's another piece of property now at Ekurhuleni, where the municipality want to expropriate that piece of property. So that is not true, but it's in contradiction of what the president said.
Well, in fact, the point there is I was making is she said it was redress. It's not about a land claim. It's about redress. And of course, this is the hazard with it, Pieter, is that law, which again I stand is unconstitutional, I stand by that. That law allows not just the national authorities to expropriate. That law allows also provincial and municipal levels of government to take people's land without compensation. And whether she said without compensation or not, using existing Section 25, the Section 25 does not allow people to take it unless it's in the public interest. And taking a private homeowner's property to give it to someone else is not in the public interest. Raising a town to build another settlement, you can make the argument, but taking someone's property just to give it to someone else for redress is in violation of Section 25 and of the new law. Or am I getting that wrong?
Yes, no, you are right. But the interesting thing here is that the foreshore, she specifically mentioned the foreshore. The foreshore belongs to the Department of Water Affairs. So my question to her was, and I sent a letter to the Human Rights Commission as well, with regard to these allegations, and I haven't heard anything from them yet. But she specifically mentioned foreshore. But the foreshore belongs to Department of Water Affairs. So is she going to expropriate from Water Affairs, or what is she going to do? It's laughable, really. And in my book, redressing is not redressing, it's retaliation in the South African context.
100%. I agree with that completely. This is about racial grievances and racial revenge by politicians who have all the power, because now they have the power and they didn't have the power before, and they think it's right. It's morally bankrupt in my view. But the land around Hartbeespoort is a long history, of course, like most land does. I don't know the full history, but I have read the report that you put together talking about the argument that white South Africans had been favored before 1994, and that's certainly a true statement, but that whites had illegally occupied the land around there. And there was a report that went to the Minister for Department of Water Affairs and Forestry back in 1998 about this. But the land was bought by someone, then sold back, and they made a profit about 14 million rand. I'm not really sure I understand the history of that, but if I'm not mistaken, did this land belong to one of the generals from the Anglo-Boer War originally? Can you tell us a little about the history of the area we're talking about?
It belongs to General Hendrik Skuman. This whole area belonged to him. And I think he bought it in 1899. What happened as far as that property is concerned that you've referred to, there was 400 hectares of property was sold to a son of the former President Jacob Zuma and to a cousin of Madiba. And at the price of 76 million rand, you are right as far as that is concerned. And that happened in 2009. In 2023-24, it was bought back at an amount of 90 million rand and was handed over to this tribe of a few thousand rand. So the perception that they are trying to create that there's no land that belongs to black people, this 400 hectare prime property next to Piconut. Piconut is a golf estate. The developer was Jack Nicklin. I met him here and I gave him the freedom of the town when he was here at that stage.
Wow, you got to meet Jack Nicklin. I've lived in Ohio when I was a kid. He's a hero and a big star in Ohio, Jack Nicklin. So, okay, let me understand. So, some of the most choice land that's the foreshore along, I guess you mean along the water by the foreshore there, the prime land was sold and then it was bought back and then it was turned over to a local group. Is that a group of Tswana speakers, I'm guessing that? And if so, what do you know the name of that particular group?
Yes, I can't remember the name now, but it's Merapeng, something like Merapeng tribe. They apparently, my investigation lead to is that they were traveling from Broederstroom area with their animals to get water from the rivers. At that stage, there was no dam, and that is why they put in a claim, because they was travel over this land to the rivers. And this land was allocated to them. One thing that I want to mention as well, the dam wall was built in 1921. And it was only white, poor workers, laborers, who built this dam wall here at that stage. And quite a few of them died in this area.
So the dam was built a century ago, and the labor is all performed by poor whites, presumably folks that couldn't find work in the Witwatersrand, I'm guessing, but who knows. But they built this, and then it was owned by this general of the land. And it's interesting because when they changed the metropolitan name of Pretoria to Tshwane, they talked about some mystical unknown Tshwane chief from back in the 17th or 18th century. Yeah. But of course, there was no formal settlement in what is Pretoria today until the truck boers established one, and so now they're stealing that cultural heritage. And in this case, we're not aware of any permanent settlement by anyone, but this group transited there, and that was the basis for the claim, and they were given land. They're given prime land. So the fact that the story is being told that Hartbeespoort is racist, that blacks are excluded, and whites burn down bubbles, sounds to me like a whole bunch of poppycock.
Of course, yes. Most certainly, yes. This is basically what we call the DA, the Democratic Alliance, is a more liberal party, and the councillors for this area are all members of the DA. This was never a racist town. It was never a far right-wing town as was portrayed. And let me give you an example what we are doing. I mentioned it briefly. We took over the role of the municipality to help a low-cost housing development here to get electrified. We went to court, and AfriForum supported us to electrify this place. There was a lot of illegal connections Mr. Ramaphosa, who is the Minister of Electrical Energy now, he prevented us. He was the mayor of Tshwane at that stage of Pretoria, and he tried to prevent us to go to court, and he even opposed us in court for electrifying this low-cost housing development. But we won the case, and it was the Afrikaners from Skommersville who initiated this. So to say that we are doing nothing and that we are racist, there are racist. Let me give you another incident, which was very upsetting to me. At the announcement of the report in Rautenbach, there was a professor, Tsepu Madlingozi, who had a speech there, and then he mentioned there that at least there was one white guy there's no proof of really serious racial issues, but at least there's one conviction. And the conviction was for one guy who was pointing a gun at one of the resort owners, one of the illegal resort owners here. But that was purely neighborhood problems between two neighbors of water that's flowing from the one property to the other property, and they had an encounter, and then the man was arrested and he was convicted for pointing a gun. But it was got nothing to do with racial. It's got to do with problems about neighbors, and I can mention many things. The same guy who got a conviction, I've got a video, and I'm going to unveil it here, where he was hitting a white man who was lying on the floor. He was drunk, and apparently he wanted to Legacy, which is the place that where the noise is coming from this weekend as well, that I've sent you the videos as well from. And then the lady, the wife of this guy, was lying on the ground, tried to prevent this Mr. Let me call it Mr. Nugwate, that he must please stop. In a very decent way, she asked him. It's all on video, and then he kicked her in the stomach. And that issue is not mentioned. They only have a one side, and it was the same with the TV. And I mentioned that I've seen this video to the TV. I've still got that video. So why can't we work together and live? I spoke to this professor afterwards, and I said to him, "You are creating a perception. You are trying to create a perception of a racist community, which is not true. The 80% to 90% of the community in Hartbeespoort is working together. Is people who wants to work together, but there's only a few people who's flaring up these racial issues in this area. I'm 100% convinced of that, and that was basically the finding also from the Human Rights Commission. There's no systemic racism.
So let me unpack that very quickly, if I understand correctly. So you've got someone that lives in the community that's a troublemaker, a rabble-rouser who causes trouble. He pointed a firearm at someone who was black, and they take that isolated incident and ignore his poor behavior, his abhorrent behavior when he kicked a drunken person who happened to be white and attacked a woman who was white. So he's been a troublemaker and caused problems for white folks and black folks, not exclusively targeting black folks. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
All right, well, that's helpful. So let me go back to the other piece of this story here, where just a moment ago you talked about, Skommersville had to go and take the government to court on behalf of people in the settlement there. You were trying to electrify it, obviously for safety reasons. These informal power hookups cause all kinds of problems. But the community that you did that for, was that Afrikaners, or were those English, or were they Tswana? I mean, who were these black, white, brown people?
It was illegal occupiers, not illegal. It was occupiers who stayed in shacks, black occupiers who stayed in shacks, and then there was a development that took place to give houses for these people, a low-cost development, but it was never electrified. It was very nice, decent houses, and it was. But we arranged then that it got electrified, because what they did, they connected illegally electricity. And there was 50 transformers that was burnt out as a result of that. But we decided then we are not only going to disconnect the illegal connections through a court order, but also get the court to enforce Tshwane to electrify these houses.
So, Pieter, the Hartbeespoort itself and Escomansville, these are primarily mostly white South Africans who live there. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, but so you're trying to tell me that these white South Africans had to take the government to court to electrify houses that were ignored. They were built by the government. I'm assuming RDP houses, but they were built by the government, and then they didn't electrify them. And the white folks had to take the government to court to get them to provide power and electrify that village. So you mean these white people help black people? I'm sorry, that's not what I read in the media. I heard all the white people in South Africa are racist. I must be missing something.
That is exactly why you will see there's very much that will be in the media about what's happening this weekend as well. That it's only one-sided reporting from the media, and the truth is not coming out. And that is our problem, and the challenge of the media in South Africa. And I think you've got a similar problem there in America with certain of these woke media outlets.
Oh, we definitely have a problem with woke and dishonest media outlets. We also have a problem with people falsely reporting the refugee program and what's actually happening in South Africa. But I said that kind of sarcastically, but I want to make sure I got the facts right, that the government actually fought to prevent that place from being electrified. I mean, you got to wonder why this happens. Is it because they just, I don't know, somebody pilfering money? Do they want to keep this narrative that black people are poor and that it's because of white people? I mean, I don't know. There's all kinds of things we could have for supposition here. But the bottom line is that they built the houses and they didn't bother to provide electricity to them. And your community actually did that on behalf of those residents. Now, look, it's not, I mean, maybe it was altruistic, maybe it wasn't. But the bottom line is that whether it was or not, the bottom line is that having illegal electrical hookups is a danger to everybody. It can cause fires and it can cause all kinds of issues on the power grid. So what you did was beneficial to the community as a whole, not just to that informal village.
Yes, there were 2 deaths already at that stage. When we intervened there to electrify the place.
So 2 people actually died because of these illegal hookups, and the government still took no action. How long a period are we talking about from the time that the houses were built before you guys went to court to try to get electrified?
That's quite a time. It's about 5 years, if not longer.
5 years. So they built these houses on prime land for people, and they were there for 5 years and didn't provide electricity. Did they even pave the streets? Did they put in sanitation, sewage, and water hookups, or were these guys relying on what's I'm having a brain fart here? What's the water containers called? The not Josie's. What are they called? The water tanks. JoJo's. Did they put JoJo's? Or they put water there.
Oh yeah, JoJo tanks. Yes. No, they had a very sophisticated. Let me just correct something. I'm not sure. I think it was a private and a joint venture of the government who built those. But the government was supposed to electrify it. But I'm talking on the correction now because it's quite a long time ago. But there was a beautiful sewage works that's been damaged and managed into the ground. It's not functional at all. The roads are beautiful. It's a star roads. It's a beautiful small development. It was low cost housing, small houses, but beautiful built houses, and it was not electrified. But we managed to enforce them through court to electrify it. Yes.
Well, Pieter, these are the stories that never seem to be told. And I've been telling people these stories myself for years and years and years, and particularly since I retired from the Army and started doing this and covering the media and covering events in South Africa. I've been telling people that most South Africans that I know, whether they're white, black, or brown, colored, Indian, Afrikaner, Portuguese, English, Tswana, Venda, most of them just want to get along and live their lives in peace and solitude, worship in the fashion they prefer, and raise their kids and hopefully have a better life for them in peace and security. But we get this constant narrative about South Africans, particularly white South Africans, that they're racist. And stories like this one where white South Africans have gone out of their way to help black South Africans aren't reported. So for instance, before I give it back to you, I was in Rautenbach in 2022, and I was asked to speak to the farmers. About 125 commercial farmers showed up there, and I spoke to them. Of course, most of them in that part of the country speak English in self-defense. So as fast as I talk, I had to be careful, so they understood me. But we had a braai afterwards, and I met one of the former police who was part of the farming community, and he was head of the local security team that went out. There was a farm attack, and they called for help. They went out, and there was bush on both sides of the road coming in and out of the property. So they managed to trap the farm attackers between the people on the farm and then the security crew. They had them trapped. They couldn't get away. And they got impatient, and they went up in a firefight, and they shot a bullet, and it went under the vest of the police officer that I met. And he died, unfortunately, bled out in a matter of a few minutes, and people didn't realize it was a mortal wound. My point of that story, Pieter, is that white Afrikaans-speaking former police officer who was a farmer gave his life defending a black commercial farmer. That story was never reported in the press, but I covered that. So my point is that somebody needs to start being honest in the media and in politics in South Africa about how South Africans help each other, black, white, and brown.
Yes, I agree entirely. That's why I appreciate your podcast, Chris. I can just mention another thing that I was personally involved as well. There was an attack, a farm attack at De Wild. It's about 5 kilometers from here, on a Mr. van der Merwe. They burnt his legs with an iron that was in the safe. They heat up the iron and they burn his leg. His skin was hanging like bacon. I was there. I visited him. And the neighborhood watch caught 3 suspects. They took them to court. They were all released without being charged by the court, by the senior prosecutor. And then we intervened. At that stage, I was with AfriForum, and we intervened. I personally intervened. I went to the senior prosecutor, and she couldn't answer me why she released him. She said, I must speak to the National Prosecuting Authority. But then I approached the National Prosecuting Authority and requested them to reopen the case, which they did. And then the police arrested all 3 of these people with the guns of Mr. Van der Merwe. One of them was shot when he tried to flee from the courtroom in Brits, and he was killed. But they were all convicted then. So, in some way, there's a lack of justice in the courtrooms itself. What I've investigated there in Brits is that documents disappeared. There's one advocate, I've got his name, I saw him yesterday, he's still there, not an advocate, an attorney. And when there's somebody that's been convicted of something, he will approach them, he will offer them to let the docket disappear. The docket is the file, court file, and then they must pay him a certain amount. The police investigated, 7 were arrested in the court. They released the suspect, and they closed the file, and the file just disappeared. And that is still happening. I can tell you I can keep you busy for many days of what I've experienced here. I've had experience in the police station. Maybe I should mention it here, sir, because it was never reported in the press what happened to me personally. I was a CPF, the Community Police Forum chairperson, and I investigated corruption allegations by the public, where the detectives would, when somebody's file a case, they arrested the person and they asked the suspect to open a false case against the complainant for what kind of reason. It's false reasons that they mentioned, and then they will arrest these suspects. The suspects will be put in the cells, and they ask them bail, and the people pay the bail. I spoke to them. I've got proof of that, and we investigated it. And I contacted the different authorities, and 7 members was removed. But before that, what happened? After I've reported them, they arrested me for interfering in the activities of the police, and they took me to and the way that they do it is incredible. They invited me to a function to give a speech there, pensioners function, and all the whole cluster, the district. there were 7 police stations involved at the function. And while the function was busy, just before I had to give my speech, they arrested me. Long story short, I appeared in court, and then after a long 4 appearances, they withdraw the case from me. I was kept in the cells. They withdraw the case against me, and I open a case, civil case, and I claimed I was paid 270,000 rand damages, and they had to pay. And then I requested my lawyers to make sure that they also added the 3 detectives who were involved in this scam, and 7, and they had to pay from, they even like claim on their pension funds. But this is the things that we are have to do daily with. And I want to take you back to a letter that was a directive from the ANC in 1993, June 1993. There was a directive where they state that we must use state resources, the police, to let the whites feel that they are second-hand citizens in South Africa. It's on record. It was on Google, and if you investigate, there's a book, the ANC in Exile, 1960 up to 1990. There's a chapter 7 that was a very objective writing. Spooks and Crooks is chapter 7, where they explain who the ANC were before 1994, before independence. That's a long story that I can keep you busy, but the people can Google this document and read it for themselves to see what and who we have to do here.
Well, I know very well who the ANC are and their National Democratic Revolution, and how they were a non-entity after the trials that took place at Rivonia in 1960s. They pretty much disappeared and had very little to do with the end of apartheid, except necklacing thousands of IFP supporters and assassinating 25,000 of their junior leaders. They really accomplished very little, but the Western media and politicians propped them up and gave them credit for things they didn't do and hailed Nelson Mandela as a hero. That's not really germane. But the issue here is that, no, I know very well what the ANC is and what they're all about, and I think a lot of people, the mask is finally coming off. It's long overdue. And your point about making white South Africans feel like second-class citizens, that's just racial revenge. That's a racial grievance. That's not Ubuntu. That's not a rainbow nation. That's simply trying to punish people. And what's really sick about that, Pieter, is that you and I were alive during the apartheid era. I think you got a couple of days on me. They might be a little bit older than I am, but we were both alive during that era. And but most white South Africans, most brown and black South Africans, 60% or more, were born after the ANC took power. The only authority they've ever known, except for in the Western Cape and a few municipalities recently, has been the African National Congress, which has increased the number of black South Africans living in poverty from less than 9 million to over 30 million black South Africans under their watch. But just today, President Cyril Ramaphosa doubled down on broad-based black economic empowerment, saying that the ANC is the only vehicle that can bring about, economic fairness, and that their policies should stay. But what you're talking about is the petty revenge politics that go on, and we could talk about this for hours. Yours is one of many cases where they've used the law to oppress people, and this is what they argue doesn't happen. But they keep saying that Trump is wrong. But I mean, just listen to your story. Trump is 100% correct.
He is 100% correct. I'm a follower of him, and I admire him for what he's doing, especially for bringing and it's openly about his Christianity. I don't want to get into that kind of politics, but our DIRCO, our director of international relations, Mr. Zain, he criticized President Trump for speaking about Christianity in the UN. I don't know if you know about that. And he published books about that as well. And I appreciate, and I hope that what is happening in the USA now will also flow through. That spirit of righteousness will flow through to South Africa. What you've got with DIA, the problems that you had with DIA, and the failures, that is the problem that we are battling with at this moment. And cadre enrichment that's taking place where Musk had personal experience from where they want him to pay 30% to bring Starlink into South Africa, and it was prevented because he must give 30% shares to cadres, ANC cadres, before he can bring Starlink into South Africa. And that's facts. That is not hearsay. So hopefully that's what's happening in America will flow through, and I hope President Trump won't leave us alone, that we need him here as well.
Well, the Ronald Lamola, don't worry, has very little credibility on this side of the Atlantic, and I can tell you that with a pretty firm. I mean, this is the gentleman who, as the justice minister a few years ago, was a miserable failure. Crime rates continue to climb, conviction rates continue to decline, and he is the person.
Out now.
Yeah, and he. Sorry.
Sorry, I can't hear you now.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Chris?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, yes, better. I can hear you now.
Yeah, it must be your connection. So I said, don't worry. Ronald Lamola has very little credibility on this side of the Atlantic. He's a person that went on CNN on the 16th of November, just before the G20 summit, and called President Trump on an international broadcast a white supremacist. I mean, he's got very little credibility. And on top of that, he's the failed justice minister who said that, well, we can't change the Constitution, but we'll just pass a law. Excuse me. We'll just pass a law with their simple majority, and we'll take the land without compensation that way. And he failed as a justice minister in so many respects. And as a foreign minister, he's absolutely clueless. So don't worry, but he has very little credibility on this side of the Atlantic. It's not something that people are paying any attention. No one's paying attention to him. He has and he has very little credibility internationally. He seems to think he does, but he doesn't. In fact, President Ramaphosa's credibility internationally is declining. He seems to think that that he's on the global stage and people are respecting him. But despite the full court press by South African media and some Western media to prop up the G20 and the results of it, those who are paying attention can see quite clearly that things didn't go well at the G20 for South Africa, who violated diplomatic norms and insulted the United States. But that's a whole other issue. So the bottom line here with all of this is that the South African Human Rights Commission came to Hartbeespoort ostensibly to do an investigation to find out what's really going on. They issued a report and they said it's not a racist town. But then they talk about expropriating property in the interest of redress. In the interest of redress. So my question to you, Pieter Rautenbach, is: are you happy or unhappy with the results of what the report says, and then the subsequent media activity of South African Human Rights Commission?
Let me just read to you one paragraph from the report. Whilst the commission was investigating Mtlulis, that is the person who filed a complaint at the Human Rights Commission, and they had a hearing, and that led to this report. He's a Zimbabwean, and he got property without an identification book, and they didn't address that. They said they are not going to address that. Mr. Mtlulis complained that racial tensions erupted, culminating in a standoff between white and black residents in Hartbeespoort. The racial tensions followed the burning down of the Bubbles recreational lifestyle venue. This is in the new report. They know, and in my reply to their preliminary report, I specifically mentioned that the ombudsman has found Star basically guilty for lying about racism. And then they still included this paragraph here. There was never a standoff, never a racial standoff. I got a phone call from Bloemfontein, from media from Bloemfontein. They said to me, are the people inside the house, and are they lying there with guns? What is happening there? Are tourists coming into Hartbeespoort? There was no tourists were streaming in over the weekends. They are still streaming into, and that is one of our main problems here, as far as the noise is concerned. But fact is that this is what they did. But in the report itself, in their findings, in their directives, they said there was no racism. But here they say, in the introduction, they say there was this standoff between. There was never a standoff, never racial tensions. They had a riot. It was totally not a riot, a protest. During that time, and I had some sources within the protesters. One of the leaders was my informant, and he informed me what is happening there. There was less than 100 who showed up. There was 400, almost 400 police in Brits from public or the policing that was waiting there. Imagine the amount of money that was wasted with that right. And then what I found out then from my informers is that majority of people were coming from outside of Hartbeespoort. It's not the Hartbeespoort people, black people were writing. These less than 100 people were mainly from Pretoria, because the cars was almost GP, that is Gauteng area. It's not from Northwest, we're Northwest here. So that is what is very strange. And if you look at all the footnotes in this document, in this report, they refer to newspaper reports where the newspapers were found guilty for racism, but they're still referring to the newspaper at the footnotes. That's absolutely ridiculous. As far as the directors is concerned, they put it very, very wise. They will say specific numerical targets to prioritize black and female applicants in the allocation of leases. That is not how the South African law is working. There's even the current BEE system that I don't agree with. You have to work. You can't just, and this is what happened here with the PTOs, the permission to occupy. One person will go to the director general. He will, I assume, I'm not saying I've got no proof, but they will pay a bribe, and then they will get the PTO. One person approved the bidding, no public participation, no BEE process. Although the act is very clear, South African Act, is that even if there's BEE applications, they have to go through a public participation process, and they've got certain status as far as BEE is concerned, and that is where the division between where they are privileged before whites. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Indeed.
And yes. So now what happened now? They want to revive the PTOs, which has been found unconstitutional by the legal team of the Department of Water Affairs, and they've cancelled all the PTOs because of the illegality, because there was no public participation process. We as community had no say in who is going to be next to us and who is making noise and making it unpleasant for us. Let me just say this to you. As far as PTOs is concerned, since 2011, there was 13 PTOs allocated. 10 of them were black, 3 were white. But if you look at the report, they showed it's overwhelmingly only allocated to whites, which is totally untrue. At the moment, there's only 4 leases that's been approved. 2 to whites, and 1 to mix, and 1 to black. So it's completely, as far as the applications is concerned for land, 80, almost 80 is for black people, 18 for white people. So why do they want to impose what do they call it here, the numerical targets? It's ridiculous, and they must do it within 90 days. That is these kind of things that have got serious problems. They say reinstate affected PTOs pending the outcome of the new leasing process. So they want the PTOs, which was illegal, was found illegal. The Human Rights Commission wanted to be reinstated within 90 days. I mean, that doesn't make sense, and I think you will agree with me as far as that is concerned.
Well, I would say that it does make sense if your objective is to paint people as racist and to use that as a cudgel to undermine their property rights and treat them as second-class citizens for a political outcome. In that case, it makes all the sense in the world. I would also say that the report that you're referring to, there's a difference between disingenuous, which is dishonest, but it's being dishonest by giving part of the story. But in this case, it appears that just is outright, flat, blatant lying going on there. They're talking about things that never happened and contorting things that did happen into a situation that isn't true. And then, of course, not mentioning the facts about what actually happened there. You talk about the permission to occupy. The fact that most of these are actually given to people who are black and not white. Look, the whole thing is really, as a person on the outside, it's quite disturbing. I'm sure that South Africans have become quite accustomed to this, but it's shocking. This is how the government rules, and it's really sad to see. Is there any recourse for Hartbeespoort? I mean, or is it just something you're going to have to suffer because the captured South African Rights Commission said this is the way it is?
Well, we will take it on in court and see how far we get. And I'm positive. I'm always positive as far as the outcome, the final outcome will concern. As far our biggest problem at this moment, and if there's any conflict, it's not between black and white. It's between white and white, black and black. As far as noise is concerned, what is happening here, Chris? There's millions and millions of people in the cities surrounding us within 1 hour's drive from Hartbeespoort. So this is becoming the playing ground of the cities. There's Johannesburg, Tshwane or Pretoria, which is the biggest city in Africa, Rautenbach, Centurion, and all those people are coming here to enjoy themselves over weekends. There's so many new taverns that's going up, bars that's going up, and everybody's just coming here. This last weekend we had the problem, which I've sent you the video, where the police was requested by the residents to stop the event, and they went there and they was chased away. We've got it on video, and I've sent the video to you as well. And so law enforcement, lack of law enforcement is our biggest problem at this moment. We can't cater with all these people that's streaming in. I was sleeping next to the event Legacy. They called it the Legacy Resort, where this event was taking place. There was many hundreds of people, if not thousands, and they were noising. They stopped at 3 o'clock. One of the residents had to phone the police again to ask them to please help us. There was only a little group of people at that stage left there, but they still carry on with their music. That's why we are winning there, because we've got new bylaws now. The guy had the event, but he had to register it, and he might get a 10,000 rand fine for having an event without being registered. He confirmed to the community that he had registered, but he didn't register, not at the police, not at Maribeng, not at Northwest Province for this event. So we are waiting now to see what's going to happen now with this. How are they going to law enforcement? And hopefully we can sort it out. We've got a meeting on Thursday with the relevant and people to try to sort it out.
Well, 3
so
points.
That is our main challenge. Yeah, about 80% of all our provinces is these people, noise pollution, doof music right through the night, from all over, from all sides. And this is a place I bought here because of the tranquility, the beautiful nature, and we have to get out of the city. I was driving daily from Pretoria to Hartbeespoort just to stay to enjoy the tranquility, and that is our main challenge at the moment here. But these people who are just here to make money out of tourists, but don't respect the residents. That is our main problem. It's not a black and white issue. It's a issue between white and black and black as well.
Well, it's a time-long problem where people live in a place that's desirable for tourism, and then local residents are there, and you have people like, look at Jeffreys Bay, it gets flooded by tourists, a place in the Western Cape, and here in the States, Cape Cod, where tourists descend on places. I remember when the Cold War ended and Hungarians could suddenly travel. They didn't have much money, but they loaded up their three-stroke engine cars, polluting the air, driving down full of lunch meats and sausages and cheeses in their coolers, and invaded the beaches of Italy and left their rubbish there and made the Italians feel very unhappy. So on that point, I'm hoping that this crowd that likes to come up from the urban areas and party in Hartbeespoort doesn't discover things further west, because I don't need them ruining my trike riding, my horseback riding, and my balloons and zip lining experience in the Mahalisburg. We don't need that, so I hope that doesn't happen. But seriously, there's two real problems you've talked about. Number one is that you keep talking about taking this to court. I mean, all this stuff costs a lot of money, and this has got to be detrimental to people's retirements or to their income or to their livelihood. And then the other thing is that with this uncertainty over these claims, and now the South African Human Rights Commission making the argument that under the interest of redress, property should be expropriated, we're talking about an issue that affects property values. I mean, is this affecting people, their ability to buy and sell homes in Hartbeespoort already?
Yes, well, I can tell you the people want to sell their houses, but they can't get the prices anymore at certain places. The place that I slept on during this weekend at Caribbean Beach Resort, the prices at one part of that resort has apparently reduced by 30% already in the past few years due to the legacy resort right between them and the foreshore. So certainly the prices has dropped. Yes, of course, it has an effect, unfortunately, on the prices.
The reason I mention that is because we're seeing that with farmland across the country. People can't sell farmland despite the government saying that they can't buy farmland. There's plenty of farmland for sale, but people can't get prices for it because people are uncertain. Will there be a fraudulent claim? Will I have to spend years in court running out of money just defending my property rights?
Yes. Yes, I agree with you.
So there's a question I need to get to from one of my viewers, and I don't know what this is about. You probably know. He said, please ask Pieter what the situation currently in the area is where Dozy stays. What about grand claims and safety? And somebody says about Dozy sold his place or built 10 houses. I don't know. Do you know anything about that story?
Yes, I know. There's what we call a squatter camp or illegal, what do they call it?
Informal settlement?
Informal settlement, yes, that is the word that I'm looking for. Dozy was right next to informal settlement. Dozy is a singer. I don't know if you know. He's a very well-known singer in South Africa. He's singing both in Zulu and in Afrikaans and English. And he had a property there where he was having events, but then he gave to the people who occupied the land illegally. He gave a piece of his property to them for a soccer field. Tried to but it didn't work. So he sold his property. I believe I can't confirm it 100%, but that's what I hear. But the problem was with this 10 rooms was one of the noisy places. But fortunately, the police, the law enforcement, could manage to get them under control in that settlement. I was even hearing it here about 10 k's from here. I was. Right through the night, they will have this African music playing from there. Sometimes it's, but not when you want to. It's nice, but not when you want to sleep.
Not at 2 o'clock in the morning, anyway. So the bottom line with all this stuff is, it appears to be a complete abrogation for the rule of law, the misuse of the law to target people like you were targeted, to intimidate you to drop a case against someone. So the abuse of the law and the abrogation of law, people just doing things in contravention of law, like bubbles, who are occupying something they didn't have permission to occupy. So before we wrap up here, let me get your thoughts on this and anything you want to share, because I think we've covered some topics here that the media won't cover. For instance, the lies that are in that report. Also, the fact that we had a settlement that was built by the government but was never electrified. I don't know what kind of plan that was. And you had to go to court to get the government, a majority black government, to do its job in order to electrify those homes for those people. And people don't know these stories. So any thoughts about the future, what's going on in Hartbeespoort? Is it going to be just, become a tourist town that you're all inundated? You're going to have to deal with this noise all night long. Do you think there's hope for a future there? And anything you'd like to share with folks before we wrap up? I'll give the floor to you. Thank you,
Chris. No, I'm as I've said, I'm very positive that we will be able to manage this. We've got a meeting on now on Thursday, and I hope we will sort out the law enforcement in this area. That is the main thing. If we can get law enforcement, then I think you can silence these people in a very short period of time. If you are imposing the new bylaw, which is very strict, there's heavy fines. If my neighbor is making a noise, the first fine is 500 rand, and then 5,000 rand is second offense. So I think with law enforcement, and with cooperation between the different communities, if we can get rid of, let me say it straight, it was this one analyst, I've posted on my Facebook as well. He said the biggest problem in South Africa is the ANC, and it must be surgically removed. It's a black analyst on TV, on NCA, he said it. The ANC must be surgically removed. And I think if that can happen, we will have a South Africa where we can live together, we can work together. If you walk through this town here and you went to shops, you will find, how can I put it to you, there's a spirit of reconciliation. People, there's no bad feelings between us. It's only from the political side where this whole thing is being instigated, and to keep it up like that. As a Christian, I believe that God is, look what happened in America. That's what I've prayed. I was praying for South Africa. Please give us a Christian government and let righteousness flow through the streets of our towns, and take these people who are stealing, turn them around, hold them on their feet, shake them out. And this is busy happening now. You know what is happening with our police, top cops that is busy in serious corruption. There was assassinations, everything that's taking place. But it's fortunately, things are happening here. What happened in America, nobody would have foreseen what would happen in less than a year. Yes, it's correct. It's amazing what happened there. And I think the same can happen here. And that's what I'm praying for, that your whole cabinet is basically Christians at this stage. I think there's one that's not a Christian, one person. And I love that, and I can see it. I can see the results. And what I appreciate also from your country is, and from President Trump, is that he is prepared on behalf of righteousness to stand to have us aim popularity from the biggest nations in the world. He was prepared to stand up and say, I'm standing behind these people in South Africa who's been oppressed at this stage. And that is why he didn't attend the G20. And we appreciate it. He's not a man, he's an honest man. He's a man who stands for righteousness. And hopefully that whole spirit will flow through the world, and also in South Africa. I mean, everywhere where he comes, he's been a respected man. It's only here where the politicians are not respecting him. The people here, whether black or white, is respecting him and is honoring him for what he's doing. And I hope that will happen here. That is what I pray God will do to our country.
Well, Pieter, bye-bye, donkey. I really appreciate your time in helping illuminate this issue and give you a fair hearing to hear what's actually been said and what's actually occurring in Hartbeespoort. And if the people from the South African Human Rights Commission want to come on my program, I'll give them the opportunity to come on. But I doubt they're going to come on here. I give them a hard time. One of my viewers said that her niece and husband are the owners of Paradismo there in Hartbeespoort. And now that I've met you, I suppose that I need to spend a little more time in Hartbeespoort rather than just zipping through it on my next trip through there. Perhaps I'll come by and pay you a visit.
That will be wonderful. I'm looking forward.
All right. Well, go ahead.
You can tell Elon Musk if you've got any contact with him. There's a lot of, we can make Hartbeespoort the Monaco of Africa. We need investments here.
Wow, the Monaco of South Africa. I'll tell you what, that sounds interesting. But one thing you definitely won't have is the steep mountain climbing that takes place there. I was in Monaco during the Rugby World Cup in 2023. I jaunted over there. I hadn't been there since the early 90s. And I walked up and down those hills, and that was pretty brutal. It was a lot of walking. It was very warm there. But yeah, you definitely have, you've got mountains here, but it's not like Monaco. That is really steep. But you know, I get the concept of building it like the Monaco of South Africa. That would be interesting. And it probably the most exciting development since they built Sun City by Sol Kirshner back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yes, that's correct. We had a plan at one stage, but then, you know, when the world economy took a dive, we couldn't continue with that. The plan was there. It was even, we had it even on tape, on CDs. But in any case, we can talk about that later. And I'm looking forward to be too young. But bring Elon Musk along.
All right. Well, if I can reach out to Elon Musk, I'll try to do that and see what I can do. No promises there. But Pieter Rautenbach, thank you very much for your time. I'll let you drop off, and then I'll wrap up the broadcast from my audience. Okay?
thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it for contacting me, Chris. Enjoy your day as well. God bless you.
All right, likewise. Thank you very much. So, folks, that's Pieter Rautenbach from the Hartbeespoort Economic Forum there in Northwest, which is barely in Northwest. Let me just help him get out of the show there real quick. All right, cool. It's just me now. All right, folks, thanks a lot. Now, the news is a little bit tardy, so we'll be back with the news in just a few minutes. If you can give me a few minutes to rearrange a few things and stick around and join us, you'll be redirected to the news broadcast after this immediately. But there you have it. That's a story that the media won't tell in South Africa about Hartbeespoort and about the community there. They try to portray people as racist with omitting facts and just telling partial stories. Shame to hear that. But I mean, this is what we see every day all over when it comes to media. They have a bad habit doing this. I just yesterday published a video, or last night, well, morning for South Africans, but last night for me after midnight, about 1:30 in the morning, I published a video about a story on Briefly in which they're talking about the refugee situation, and they're telling partial stories. And when you do that, that's disingenuous. It's just dishonest. All right, folks. Yeah, I said late 70s, did I not? I said for Sun City. I said late 70s. All right, so thanks a lot. Be sure to join us on the news broadcast. And my thanks to my guest, Pieter Rautenbach. I appreciate it. You all have a good day. God bless. Cheers.